This is going to be your guide to using Dudunsparce in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So how do you use the long-awaited evolution to Dunsparce? You don't. It is merely a vessel to give Dunsparce EVIOLITE. That's it. Dunsparce was actually barely playable and had some really weird combos and moveset potential before it got an evolution, but now that it just gets 50% more defense on the EVIOLITE and has a pretty solid moveset, things have gotten pretty interesting. So if you enjoyed the video or if it helps out in any way, don't forget to leave a like, share with your friends, and comment your thoughts down below. So, because Dunsparce is an old school Pokemon, this just kind of feels like an honest breakdown of a simple Pokemon that can work. You dig through the moveset, you try to find some good stuff. We have Coil. Coil, just a strong move. Attack, defense, and accuracy increase, so it's a better bulk up that gives you access to weird, inaccurate moves like the Iron Tail on certain Pokemon, like the Rock Slide, like anything that's just randomly missing accuracy. You don't have to worry about it, and you're also getting really good stats. So since we're going to be buffing our defense, we can go all in on special defense. EVIOLITE's going to kind of make everything feel pretty good. Then 100 on the base hit points, also going to feel pretty nice. It's decent. And when you're all-inning on these stats, the Pokemon gets tanky, even tankier with EVIOLITE, and we also get Roost. So we have Sustain. Some Pokemon, even if you're trying to make them really tanky, they don't have reliable Sustain, so the setup doesn't really work on them, and that's when we start getting into the fun. So Glare, we just paralyze the opponent. That means their speed is cut in half. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of speed, and that's the big problem here, that with the nerf to paralysis, where it went from 75% speed reduction to 50%, Dunsparce lost a lot of the favorable Paraflinch matchups, because that's what you want to do. You want to paralyze the opponent, which is just better with Glare over the Thunder Wave, and then you want to Rock Slide them. So Coil, boosting the attack and accuracy of Rock Slide, feels pretty good. Doesn't matter that you have a low attack stat, because your opponent is not allowed to play the game. 25% chance they're full paralyzed, Serene Grace into Rock Slide, 60% chance flinch, and if they hit you, well, physical attacks don't do anything because you're boosting defense, and now with EVIOLITE, max special defense means you're eating a hit pretty well, then you just roost it off anyways. So the goal is to outspeed the opponent after Glare, and then lock them out of the game. Unfortunately, we just have a lot of fast Pokemon, and that becomes really difficult, because, okay, we got 66 here, but then a 123 speed Pokemon that's fairly common ends up at 192. How do you even catch that? So if we want to outspeed a fairly common, weird speed creep Pokemon with a 123 speed, we have to get to 97 speed, and we just barely do it. So here's even more weird math and speed tier stuff for you. A neutral nature 45 speed Pokemon doubling its speed will catch a 123 Jolly. Pokemon has gotten out of control. Now, does that matchup even matter? So ignoring Masquerade tricking you and immediately just bodying the strategy, what happens if we don't have an invested Dunsparce? Now, we do get to add the EVIOLITE, and Flower Trick doesn't care about it. Okay, that's just weird. So a 110 attack Pokemon, not hitting us super, not doing any kind of crazy boosting stuff. I'm assuming Focus Sash here, Choice Scarf, well actually Choice Scarf doesn't matter because then it's faster, and then Choice Band damage kind of gets pretty rough. But at the end of the day, you're able to eat a hit. If it's not going to be doing crazy boosting, you're a 3-hit KO, and then you actually get to hit it with the Glare, which means then you start outspeeding it, and then you just hit it with Rock Slides. So you can actually trade in this situation and then eat another hit and do the same thing to the opposing Pokemon, or you actually get a one-hit buffer into the Meowscarada. Now, what does +0 Rock Slide damage look like? It's not going to be great, but possible 5-hit KO when the opponent has a very slim chance to actually take an action that turn. And again, you get one action allowance on that second Flower Trick that you just kind of survive. Now, this matchup is really ugly and kind of worst case scenario for the Dunsparce because, yeah, we have to go all in on the speed to catch a sweeper that does some tricky things and then would ignore any defense boost we have with Coil. But it just kind of shows yeah, Dunsparce can eat a hit, even uninvested. It only gets better while invested. And I'm guessing if you're doing that, I was do you go all in on the hit points and tech that special defense because you still have the Coil there? for certain kind of niche matchups. When you look at this, we're actually not gaining a lot of effective health because of how base stats work. So we're going to be getting more here, and then we're getting more out of it with the Eviolite. And even then, that means if we, instead of just going on the hit points, we could do something like this, and it's still going to feel pretty good. But again, we're like coiling anyway, so that doesn't matter too much. It's like, yeah, Dunsparce actually gets away with this, and it just kind of leads to a fairly unfavorable matchup, but you can still win it through like sheer RNG and cheese. So we can use Pokemon Showdown to search by speed and see what other Pokemon we might need to be aware of. So there's Meowscarada. We also have 120 speed with Dugtrio. That's weird because of Glare into ground type, but you don't need to paralyze Dugtrio because it kind of doesn't hit hard, so you just coil against it, and now you're like free set up and hard winning. Fissure interaction gets kind of weird in RNG. And after that, we get into 119, and then it's just a mess from here. Like, 123 and below now, even 125 and below now, because of all the speed creep, it's like, oh, we have a 119, an 18, a 17, a 16, some usable Pokemon, 111s and 15s, and everything. Like, and then you can just find Pokemon all the way down, and some of them can be pretty common, and also pretty threatening depending on the meta. We haven't seen what the game looks like with Iron Valiant and Roaring Moon in Cinderace, because it's in the game, could just be allowed as well. Cinderace matchup gets pretty wild, so if it doesn't have like any kind of extra crazy damage boost, that high jump kick doesn't directly KO us. So speed creeping it and doing the same thing to the Cinderace as we did to the Meowscarada, that's a possibility. Now this is Focus Sash, so a Life Orb Cinderace, that's going to hurt. Terra Cinderace, if it hasn't burned its Libero yet, so we can see Life Orb damage, that's a lot. Focus Sash Libero. We can set that one up. That starts finding KOs. So the question is, if it's worth chancing EVs on the Dunsparce to match up into a Cinderace who isn't going to like just straight Libero high jump kick you, or only has a Life Orb and then a chance to KO you off of that, or maybe like some other weird stuff going on, because like outside of the high jump kick, the matchup again lets you set up, lets you get into that position kinda until you get Sucker Punch, and then you just don't play those priority games. But then Sucker Punch versus Coil into just 25% chance of full paralysis. It's kind of really ugly. So we can see the speed right here. That's going to be 188 speed. So that means if we go... actually, we can just do the -2 because that's effectively the same thing. We just need to catch that. So about 200 EVs. That's not enough. Oh boy. So it starts to look pretty ugly. So we need to put 236 EVs into the speed, which means over the Meowscarada matchup, we get 2 points into defense. Yeah. I mean, you can make just like a full-on tanky Dunsparce that breaks down anything else or finds like a different speed tier as you go down, as you make your Dunsparce a little bulkier. Or you can just try to make it like a cheese Pokemon for only slow tanks. But at that point, like even if you go +6 on the coils, and then you're hitting it with like a non-stab Rock Slide, I don't recommend going Terra Rock for the extra damage. You might even need Terra Flying just so you don't get fissured or something. Like, even that into a neutral... Actually, Dondozo's just going to be unaware, so that doesn't matter. Into, like, a neutral full defensive Pokemon, it's going to be a long, just dragged-out battle. And then, like, the chance that they have to not get Paraflinch, they just recover, and you have to do it all over again. So, like, into bulky Pokemon, Dunsparce isn't going to succeed. Even though it can set up, even though it can make ground, then you just get into a complete stalemate of a game. And then to more sweeping Pokemon, you stand more of a chance. But that's when you have to start giving up bulk that makes the interactions and matchups kind of weird. So it's usable, it's cool, it's fun, it's viable with the Eviolite, but because of that nerf to paralysis, it kind of makes it sketchy. But it's still fun. Like, you can still set up, you can still use this as like an anti-physical Pokemon. If you find coils, if you find that, you just kind of work, and then you can shut out an entire Pokemon or an entire team. If Dunsparce goes 1-for-1, it has helped you in winning the battle, and it's now more possible than ever because of the Eviolite. So then I wanted to see what the damage calculation said about an optimal Dunsparce offensively. So the interesting thing is Body Slam is going to be stab, so that you actually just get more damage out of it, and then a 30% chance to paralyze the target, but Serene Grace makes that 60% chance. So it's not perfect, but still a solid chance to get paralysis, and then you can kind of convert that into your Paraflinch, maybe finding like extra damage and coverage and things from there. But what about stored power? Because Coil counts for all of its things. If you boost accuracy, that's actually adding power into stored power. So let's go and put a Body Slam here, and then we can also put Stored Power, and then we have to figure this out. So Stored Power is going to be 6 times 3 times 20 plus 20, which gives us 380 base power, just off of going, let's say, max coils, because you're going to be getting into that position. And then the damage isn't that crazy because we have low special attack. Now, Body Slam, if we then get that to the +6, which is quadrupling damage, it's just more damage. So it's not like, oh, the extra stat of accuracy on the coil means that Stored Power is going to be more optimal. Doesn't really seem to get there, so you want to go Body Slam into some kind of move as an option. Can still have damage. The Earthquake's pretty cool, so like, yeah, you just say, you know what? Damage Dunsparce. Now, because Dunsparce is an old-school normal-type Pokemon, it gets the weirdest rainbow coverage. So you have the Aqua Tail, you have the Earthquake. Can also find an Ice Spinner, Poison Jab in here. You got Bite, if that's how you want to use your Paraflinch, and Dragon Rush, and just all kinds of things. Actually, Dragon Rush, that 75% accuracy goes away, and then you just find more damage on the Dunsparce, so that could be something. It also makes it to where the immunities aren't going to be as bad. Because, like, very low chance that Body Slam Earthquake gets fully immune, but Mismagius is out there, Non-Form Rotom, I guess they don't ever get play, Oricorio, and Drifblim. Maybe, like, something else just kind of going wrong, like a Levitate Pokemon that then goes into a Ghost Terra type. So, like, then it's kind of risky for all the setup, but sometimes you can just eat an immunity and not matter and just never see it. Just hope you never see it. Other weird things about Dunsparce is, like, Coil's a big deal. You can also, like, inverse this into the Calm Mind Stored Power and just play against not having Dark-type Pokemon. So, like, yeah, Dunsparce just gets the Calm Mind for some reason. And then it has interesting special coverage to back that up. So, I think there's enough bits and pieces here to where you can actually build a Dunsparce that's anti-meta, but because of how the meta works and it's always changing, I can't say, hey, here's the exact anti-meta Dunsparce that would exist for your exact team composition right now. But it means there's actually something to look for. That maybe the pieces are here to where, like, some vulnerability on your team, some weird 6-slot cheese that you just want to win with versus what's being played in the game. Dunsparce with the Eviolite can fit into that on, like, speed tiers, bulk tiers, weird setup, just outright damage on, like, reliable coiling, or also just have damage. Like, what makes Dunsparce so good here is the Roost. You're not going to find other coil Pokemon like the Orthworm that have reliable sustain and then can out into it while also being tanky. So Dunsparce isn't going to get one-hit KO'd by any special attack like the Orthworm will, and then it can also heal half its health on demand while being a coil offensive Pokemon. So it frees up a lot of opportunities here, and then you can run some kind of weird moveset that makes the opponent feel like God is against them when it's the exact right and only Pokemon that can beat their team. And Dunsparce might weasel into it with all the pieces that it has. Yeah, weird Pokemon, can be fun to use, has to be very technical, and you just build it right and hope it's the right one to have, and then you win. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.